Y'all ready?
Welcome everybody to our governance meeting this 13th day of December. And especially welcome our staff and our board members and our followers for public transportation. Now I call this meeting to order. Time is 11 o'clock. First, we will go into our presentation to the committee and we'll turn it forward to our CEO, Ms. Lady Massimo.
Thank you, Chairman. For the communications update, I'd like to ask Mario Johnson if she would provide that to me for this morning.
Thank you, CEO DeMassimo. Good morning to the board and everyone who is here with us today. So this is our monthly communications update for the month of November. Sorry. All right. So for our November recap, we wanted to focus on some of the big things in our department, which one of them is our service alerts. As you can see here, in September, CAT had 554 subscribers to its RIDECAT alert system. In October, CAT had 709 subscribers. And in November, we had 758 subscribers. So we wanted to show you guys that we are consistently growing our service alert system, and our riders are consistently knowing what's going on with CAT, including the delays, any information, events on a variety of basis. All right, so Director Odell, she mentioned to the communications department that just giving us some encouragement on our social media reporting. So after reading her latest report that she sent us, the communications department, decided to refocus how we focus on social media. We wanted to focus on three things, which is follower growth, page reach, and page visits. So these are all of our five major social media accounts. And in the month of November, you are seeing the numbers for all of those three categories and how we are going to focus moving forward and reaching people on our social media platforms. All right, in November, we had 31 mentions in newscasts over our media outlets, including Savannah Morning News, The Tribune, and Local Today. And then the last thing we have for you today, the one that we are really excited about, is our 35th anniversary and appreciation social that's coming up next Wednesday, December 21st. We know that you guys got an invite and we hope that you guys all join us. The first half, which starts at 4:30, will be for our stakeholders and our community partners. And then from 6 to 8, we will be honoring our employees, those who are 35th and more with the company, and all of our employees as well. And that's our communications update. It's going to be here at CAT Central, yes, ma'am.
The next committee presentation is the service delivery and operational committee update from Dr. Mandy.
Excuse me, Mr. Massimo. Director Odell had a hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Director Odell.
Yes, I'm sorry, excuse me. I want to say that report was great. Thank you
Yeah.
for making the adjustments. Thank you.
Good morning, board, and good morning, all chiefs. I'm happy to inform you that the state of our company is good. Very, very good. So in training, when I got here, it was 9 weeks and it was too long. I looked at all this schedule and the syllabus. So we're able to bring that to 5 weeks, get people in, train them well. My belief is not the duration of training, but it's the quality of training. So we're able to do that. And we hired 7 folks. Out of the 7, 5 are for paratransit and 2 are for fixed route. They're all trained and they're out. And now I'm proud to inform you that they're all part of our workforce. The more we hire, the more we can have our core business done, take buses out and pick people up. That's our business. So that was done. And the month of November, on-time performance was good. And this is all pertaining to workforce. If you have more people, bus is going to go out and they'll be out on time. So if comparing the month of November to last month, October, on-time performance went up almost about 5%. So the month of October was 88.4, November was 61.2. And that's an increase of roughly about 5%, so which is a good news. Thank you. Ridership. There's a number here that I'm still working on. If you look at non-run and missed trip, so that was, according to my analysis, that is misinformation. We can never have almost 3,000 missed trip. And that is incorrect. So I'm working on that. Our next report, I'll have the accurate numbers for you. This is something that was reported and I found out that was an error. There's no way we can miss almost 3,000 trips. So I'm working on that. Onboarding, we're able to bring in 7, like I said, out of the 7, 2 were for fixed route, 5 was for paratransit. So please. Now on the paratransit side, if you compare the numbers from November to October, the month of November was much better. If you look at the missed trips, I'm more concerned about the missed trip, how our performance on the paratransit side is, how many people book our system and how many were we able to pick them up. So this number is almost like double. If you look at the month of October, we had missed trips of almost 1,200. And if you compare that to November, it's 528. That's a good sign that we're doing everything right. And again, I will say this is happening because we have more workforce and people are kind of engaged to the core of our business. And again, it's leadership and Ms. Fair, thank you. Me to get the system much better. Next slide, please. So, where am I on this? Okay, so the unassigned scheduled trips, if you compare again to last month, this is much better. Again, it's all improvement on the paratransit side. Now to the marine. If you look at the ridership on the marine, is very, very good compared to the month of October. October, we have 42,625. The month of November, 52,849. That's a change of almost 20%. So though we run on one vessel, still we're able to transport more people. We're still doing very good. On the maintenance side, I guess it's not much to say on here. The only thing that I would say is that if you look at our fixed route, road calls is always the key. That means how many times did our bus break down and how many swap buses do we do? The problem we're having now, and I would say to the board that our paratransit vehicles are all over their useful life. And we're working very hard to replace those. So in the month of January, when we're going to be reporting December, we might have some good news to share with you. time purposes, I go to my last slide and give you an update. And this is why I said at the beginning that the state of our company is very good. We had an issue earlier on with old folks living in the summit, the Savannah Summit. They made it aware that they are on a fixed income, and the only way to live their residents to go out is relying on public transit. So we created a shuttle, and this shuttle was a very good thing, thanks to Ms. Faye. So the shuttle was pretty much designed to go to the summit, pick people up, and transport them to nearing fixed route where they can.
This served in the interim when the Route 4 changes.
Yes.
And now with the Route 4 Restoration Act, this week, then that demonstration that we did, or that implementation of the shuttle, that gave that sort of bridge between those two.
Yes, that's correct. So the Route 4 went in effect yesterday. And so because of that, we no longer have the shuttle running, because that was the same route that the 4 would have gone. So the good news, we're able to bring the Route 4 back because we're able to hire 2, train, and have them to join our workforce. That's why the Route 4 is back in service. Paratransit vehicles, like I said, almost 31 of those vehicles are over useful life. So if they are designed for 100,000 miles, they are all over 100,000 miles. So we brought, for the first time, we're trying to use electric vehicles for the paratransit. We have some of them on our site, and we road test them. They're very good vehicles. So we're planning to get them, and we'll keep the board updated when we do so. We met with Garden City. It was me and the assistant CEO for maintenance to provide a need for Garden City. They wanted 6 bus stops, 3 inbound and 3 outbound. So we met with Garden City and did that, and we're able to locate the areas. So that's.
Dr. Meany was mentioning on that one. So the most recent meetings with Garden City, you all know the Garden City work's been underway for a bit. What we're doing now is working with Garden City through permitting with GDOT on State Route 21 for those additional stops. Had a very good on-site meeting with GDOT, and as Dr. Meany mentioned, with our staff. So that is proceeding forward. It looks like we're still on track right now to implement the Garden City service expansion right after the first of the year. Good news, not on this slide, but I want to mention related to that, we had an excellent meeting yesterday with Port Wentworth, and they are looking for a service expansion by mid-2023. And we had a very good discussion yesterday with them about the parameters of that, what that would look like, how they would be paying for it and so forth, rate meeting. And so another service expansion on the horizon for CAT in an area that needs it, especially the Amazon facilities with the tremendous amount of residential growth in Port Wentworth. It was remarkable to hear about the new housing starts there. And no doubt that some of those new housing starts are going to be where the labor force lives that's going to ultimately be working at Hyundai and other surrounding employment centers. So super opportunity for CAT and to meet the need. So I just want to be sure to mention that.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up. And for the first time, we did a graduation for our students, the 7 that we hire and train. And the graduation was last week, and it went very well. So we're going to continue doing that. Anytime we hire and they graduate, we'll do that graduation ceremony. And board members, you are all welcome to attend. It went very well. And also, I've been saying this from day one, that the more people we can hire, the more we can get our work done. So we introduced a weekly hiring where anybody can walk in here every Friday, interview, and get hired. So if you know folks looking for a job, every Friday, send them our way. We'll hire them and make sure that our workforce is up to capacity. And with that, I will say again that the state of our company is very well. And thank you all for your time.
next report will be financial services audit compliance update, Ms. Cutter, our CFO. But before she starts, I wanted to offer some remarks that I think are important to frame the sort of top lines on the agenda items, or report that you're going to hear in the later agenda items for action related to the Ferry Building Work and just overall financial management. We have discussed in previous meetings that the ferry costs have risen rather dramatically, in part due to delays in timely implementation and current market conditions with materials costs and supply chain unreliability. We all know those things. As we look across the CAP fleet of fixed route, paratransit, and ferry service, the ferries are arguably in the most need, with deferred maintenance and life cycle matters simply catching up with us, as they are frankly on many parts of our fleet. We have worked diligently since September to confirm partnerships and an approach that ensures we are meeting our CAP fleet needs to operate safely and efficiently, as well as in a fiscally responsible manner, as you would expect of us as the public expects of us. What Ms. Cutter will share the details with you on our recommendations. I wanted you to know that our recommendations reflect just that commitment to operating safely and efficiently and fiscally responsibly. And we are confident in the details of the recommendations that we're making today. And I wanted you to realize how much work went behind it. It did require prioritization and hard management decisions. We will be taking delivery on, I know as Dr. Manning mentioned earlier, and that you'll hear more about today, of 10 paratransit vehicles in January. So we are looking at our paratransit fleet, and we recently added an extra outfit of the electric buses. On the ferries, we recently, and you heard that in the early report, only had one in operation. But with 3 ferries, it is a remarkably unreliable situation with that. We also have 3 of those ferries that are reaching the end of their useful life, requiring really some dramatic maintenance costs to money as we take delivery of the new ferries. So the ferry needs to be discussed today, while higher than anticipated, reflect a critically needed investment. The Savannah Convention Center and SAMI are both making contributions to the needed funding for that, totaling $1.525 million in their participation. And although no additional SPLOST 7 funding is available through our line item under the county, we are committing $5 million of the $10 million that is currently available to us for this needed leveraging of federal dollars in the ferry grant, as well as necessary reserve funding to make that total commitment move forward. SPLOST 7 funding, along with other partners, will continue to support paratransit maintenance facility, which we are maintaining as a priority, and the ferry maintenance facility implementations. We will hold on advancing the ferry earmark and pending ferry grant, additional fixed route buses, and additional paratransit buses beyond those that are already committed until additional funding is identified. So the good news then, with regard to some of those intentional decisions that we have made in our recommendations to what we need to now, and what we need to hold on for a bit. And then last week's meeting with GDOT, and this was also reported to you in your snapshot. We learned that the Georgia Transit Trust Fund will include distribution of the ride-hail fees funding to a new formula program. We will apply for these annually, and it will be a new, this is great news, a new recurring funding source for CAP. Additionally, we have requested the General Assembly delegation support of a direct line item allocation to leverage funds needed for the remaining ferry replacements. Success in this request will permit us to replace and modernize the fleet, and then redirect other CAP resources back to fixed route paratransit. So we'll all be things that we do.
Would that be more of the operational side? That these funds could shift?
It could. One of the things that we heard is that there is some flexibility in some of this funding from GDOT, and as well as some of that direct line allocation funding to be able to what they call capitalize operations funding in with that. So yes, I think there will be some, I would call it more limited, but nonetheless available applications clarification for operations.
So to me, that's critical.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely. Our recommendations for award and approval today reflect the work done by Ms. Cutter and myself to make sure we are responsibly and effectively meeting the needs of the community. With that, I'm going to turn the detailed discussion of both her report and then later we'll come back to those specific agenda items. But wanted to be sure you had that framework background of all the months of work that have gone into getting us to these recommendations today and making sure that we're doing exactly what we said. We got to meet needs. We have to do it in a fiscally responsible manner within the constraints that we have. And sometimes got to make some hard decisions, but we think these holds that we discussed are well placed. Ms. Cutter.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Board of Directors, our CEO, Mr. Massimo, and colleagues, and the public at large. I'll be going over and giving a financial snapshot for focus on the month of November and giving an overview of some of the issues and challenges as Ms. Massimo shared in her introduction. The first slide gives a pictorial picture of our financial status for the month of November, as well as a chart detailing the numbers. As you can see on the graph, again, in November, our revenues exceeded our expenses. Revenues for the month came in at a little over $2.6 million, and expenses came in at $2.1 million. CAT's largest revenue category is the special district transit tax. And I've been reporting all during fiscal year 23 that this number is driven by the collection of property taxes and CAT receiving its distribution. In November, that represented 50.3% of CAT's revenue stream for the month of November, followed by our paratransit revenue, and then by grant revenue. Our expenses by category, and this is nothing new. The primary expense category falls with salaries and wages and employee benefits. Now, as when you see the December and the January report, this picture is going to look differently on the revenue side and the expense side, simply because we will, once approved by the board, be implementing the union contract, which will have a major impact, of course, on the expense side and of course on the revenue side to support that as well. Our cash receipts for the month, we received a little over 1.3 million in special district tax, and our monthly allocation to support paratransit operations of $493,874. At month end, in the operating account, we had a balance of $6,957,906 as of November 30th, 22. Now let's look at how the actual looks in comparison to the budget. This diagram, it tells the story. Our passenger fares are still below budget by 9%. Our agency revenue is up by 13%. Our transit tax revenue is up by 21%. Our grant revenue is down, and that's just based upon the timeliness of receiving our grant revenue. And under the other category, just wanted to call your attention to the positive variance of our other revenue. We are receiving a little over $12,000 in interest revenue. That was for the month of November. And that number should be going up because we made a significant deposit to our reserve fund in the month of November. On the expense side, our salaries and wages are still down because of the union contract has not been implemented as of yet. And you're going to see, you'll be getting a comprehensive report, and it's going to tell you, and it's going to show you how these savings, they're there for a reason. These savings will fund the impact of the union contract negotiations. No additional cost associated with that. Every penny that goes towards implementing that union contract is budgeted within the fiscal year 23 operating budget. And this contract, we made significant improvements in wages, in benefits. And I think I hadn't been here that long, but I think both sides are happy. I think the leadership really felt good about what was included within the contract negotiations. And I think employees, not just union employees, but all employees, I think will be happy with the outcome of those negotiations. Our benefits in line with salaries and wages, they are below budget for the most part. As I mentioned earlier, in December, January numbers, you're going to see all of this change because of the implementation of the union contract once the board actually approves it, take action on it. Materials and supplies, staff is really doing a very good job in monitoring spending, doing very good with fuel. It's still below budget. Our utilities were just slightly above budget. Operating reserves. Our goal, 7.5 million, which represents 3 months of the operating budget. Our balance at the end of October was a little over $4 million. We made a deposit on November 30th of $2.4 million. We earned interest for the month of a little over $12,000. And we are very close to meeting the goal as outlined in the policy as adopted by this board. Our current balance in our reserve fund is a little over $6.5 million. Now, with the challenges ahead of us, and I'll get into that a little later, our reserve fund may be impacted, but I assure you, we will monitor and we will manage our cash flow so that these reserve dollars can be protected as long as possible, and we can continue to earn interest that will help to offset some of these additional operating costs. The FY23 reserve fund planning, we've talked about this. The goal for investment in that fund is $3.8 million. We made a giant step towards that. And this money may possibly, some of it, have to be used for a local match for congressional earmarks. FTA grant match is for the ferry vessels. We have an aged fixed route fleet. We have an aged paratransit fleet. And you never know when there may be an emergency incident that impacts the cost of operation. So that's what your reserves is all about. And we have to be prepared for these things. Now, the bright spot is that we have potential new revenue sources that we anticipate coming in the second half of fiscal year 23 that will relieve some of this pressure of reliance on the reserve fund to get us through. So that's a very bright spot, and looking forward to those final decisions coming in. And I have to say that Chatham Area Transit has a lot of support. A lot of support at the state level. We are continuing to strengthen and build our relationships here locally by showing diligence behind everything that we say to the public, to our local partners. We are doing our very best to be good stewards so people have confidence in us. And whenever we're in need, we can go to them for the help that we need to render good, reliable, safe public transit service. That's what we're here for. That's what it's all about. And it doesn't rely totally on CAT. It relies upon the willingness of the community to contribute.
I think it's better to that end. One thing I want to say is one of the things I'm proudest of right now is what we've started to do to expand that support base.
Yes,
Because while there's no doubt that the county and city are just critically important partners to CAT, CAT's reliance upon that does not serve us well into the future. We need to expand that support base. So the partnerships that we're developing right now in the state, some of these other partnerships that we really been cultivating at the community level and so forth, and these new funding streams are going to be critical to making sure that our financial portfolio is the kind of portfolio that's needed to support our success moving into the future without heavy reliance on any particular funding source. That's just important.
absolutely. Thank you for that, Mr. Massimo.
Just kind of a quick overview. So in the next 6 months or so, we're planning on spending about $3.8 million out of the reserve.
Well, I wouldn't say that because we're going to manage. We're going to do some good cash management. You know, it takes 2 years to build a ferry boat, and it's going to be really contingent upon the payment schedule.
Strategic and diligent cash.
I'm literally
management.
doing that right now personally. Is that, so how do you pay for a ferry? Is that like half up front and half when you get it?
Once we award bids, once you award the award of bids, which will be coming out at the next meeting, we'll talk about that a little bit more. And we negotiate the contract. That contract will include a payment schedule.
Yes,
And it's usually tied to progress. It's progress.
progress driven. Yes.
So it's sort of riding the wave, but we do need to spend $3.8 million on buses and ferries.
We're going to be spending a little more than that.
No, absolutely.
Okay,
So,
But then again, keep in mind, we're not just spending our money.
right,
We're spending
grants,
money, federal money,
partnership.
New state money, and
So
hopefully
it's
some
cash
money
flow.
from the absolute.
Cool. Very cool.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The reserve is there for, and yeah.
Yes. But I have to remind the board and, you know, the public and our partners that a reserve fund you should always maintain. Because you never know when there will be a critical financial need. You never know what the true impact of a recession will be, and that reserve fund will take us through those low periods of revenue so that we may not have to lay off employees. We can weather the storm. So we should be very diligent in trying to maintain a reserve fund in accordance with our
And
policy.
it's even more critically important for CAT because the situation that we find ourselves in is not only the sort of a potential recession, mild or otherwise,
Yes.
come to Georgia. But keep in mind what we've described to you is every single part of our fleet, fixed pair or marine services, every single part of our fleet has frankly suffered from a lack of attention for way too long. Whether that's in deferred maintenance or in deferred replacement. And there's any number of, it kind of doesn't matter why that occurred, but it is what it is now. And we've got to make sure that we manage successfully through that, so that we continue to provide great service. That is the kind of service our community wants to see, but within this really strong financial posture that we also have to maintain.
So one final question, probably not the last question though. When do we get we are down to one ferry, which is
Yes,
pretty crazy.
yes.
When will we have 2 ferries?
So right now, projected on ferries that are being repaired, so we have another ferry back in the water. It looks like we could have one back in the water later this month or perhaps in January.
Yes.
I hesitate to say that because, you know, you're concerned that we won't meet that, but we are diligently working on the 3 that have, you saw the report earlier of all the things that are amiss with them or in a state of some sort of repair need right now with them. So, but right now there's at least 1 projected to be back in service later this month.
Okay.
So, you know, that gives us a little breathing room to keep in mind. We're also throwing money at aged fleet to keep it running until we can get, you know, good stuff out there.
But the good stuff is still like 2 years away.
2 years away,
Yeah.
so we've got to keep those things together to be a safe place.
Thank you.
I was just gonna say that, for the sake of those here on the Zoom meeting, what our CEO and our chairman have done with relationships and partnerships, as well as the staff, has made it to where we're positioning ourselves not just for this moment, but for a year out, 2 years out, 5 years out. They're thinking way ahead. And to me, for as many years as I've served on CAP, that has not been the case. So these relationships and these partnerships will take us forward in the future. And I thank our CEO for cultivating and maintaining these partnerships and relationships, because I think it will bode very well for us moving forward. So it's very evident.
Conferences also, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think we are in the process now of rebuilding the credibility of CATS back in the community. And I also want to say, congratulate the team representing CAT who did the negotiation with the union. I know that was a good job, but you did a good job and you done it high.
We did. I think the union is, when you come out of something like that, and both the union is genuinely deeply pleased, and we are genuinely deeply pleased, you know that everybody came to the table with the right spirit to do the right things the right way.
Good. So Ms. Cutter, I would just like to say this to you. You're doing a great job with giving us these financial reports.
Oh, she's
Very clear and concise.
Thank you. The action items for this month's board meeting, I talked briefly about union negotiations. And I'm just going to share briefly. I think what really made it work was staff and union came to the table with the same desire. What was best for employees.
Get the job done.
To get the job done, and a look at the total CAP, not just one side of CAP, but the total CAP. We care about all employees, and it paid off. I think everybody should be happy. It was a good day for us. The RFP for the on-call services, a recommendation, will be coming forward at the board meeting for approval. This is good and healthy for CAT to help us meet grant application deadlines, for us to implement projects timely, for us to be just good stewards of resources that have been awarded to us. The bid proposals for the ferry boat did come in with an average proposed cost of $5.8 million, pretty much. $1.8 million above the project estimate of $3.95 million. So with that, the CEO, myself, we've been working very hard, and we will be, prior to the board member, sending the board a very comprehensive memo so that you all can relax, letting you know that we have a plan.
And it follows what you heard me share with you.
That's right.
In the opening remarks.
That's right. We have a plan for getting these ferry boats under construction. We have a plan to get us some new paratransit vehicles in. And we have a plan to even look at fixed route. And you know, the amazing thing, it's all about efficient management and utilizing your savings in the areas where they are most needed. We won't be coming back to the board, hopefully, for more money. We're going to manage what we have, and we're going to get it done. What's coming? Next slide, please, Ms. Dion. Talked about this comprehensive report. It'll be presented prior to the board meeting because we want you all to be comfortable. We want to be transparent to inform you of actually how all of this is going to get done and how it's going to happen. It's going to be a good, complete, comprehensive overview. We're just not throwing it together. It's going to mean something to you. And as you're out there advocating for CAT, it's going to be a tool that you can use to tell your constituents and the public just how CAT is spending its money and how we're going to be able to meet these financial challenges.
And it's our way also of sharing with our funding partners, especially including the county, Chatham County, Kansas City, Savannah, as to how we're managing through this as well.
Next slide, please. Our recruitment stats for the month of November, they are listed here with the outcomes. The CAT Weekly Job Fair on the 18th resulted in 3 potential employees stopping by, 3 interviews conducted. We partnered with Chatham County for a job fair at Tompkins Center, wherein we had 10 attendees to stop by. As you can see, we're still plugging away, trying to fill positions that are open within Chatham area transit. We cannot be effective without good employees. For the month of November also, our HR department received 35 applications. The managers conducted 16 interviews. We made 5 offers, 4 new hires, and 6 recruiting events. That concludes my report.
Ms. Carter,
Yes.
I need to ask, I got a couple of questions.
Okay.
I want to go back to the on-call contract.
Yes.
I just need to know that, are we working on being able to do some of this in-house where we would have to contract it out?
Absolutely, Dr. Robinson. The on-call purpose is to help us in the event of position vacancies. It is to help us if we identify grants, other grant opportunities that will help the operations of CAT, where there are strict deadlines to get the application in. We'll have backup resources that we need to get these types of things done, in addition to project management support. You know, the FTA is getting very stringent on record keeping and managing projects and the reports that we have to submit. So it just provides CAT with the backup services that it needs. And these services only complement staff. They don't take the place of staff and to fill the voids of vacancies.
Dr. Robinson, this is
What my concern is, when I read it and it talks about FTA and what you just stated, my concern is, are we getting staff familiar enough that we won't, have any missteps, and that we will be so familiar with the requirements as a staff, that we can cover our own backs?
I think that's absolutely, Dr. Robinson, this is Faye Massimo. I think that's absolutely true. I think as Ms. Cutter just stated, these on-call contracts, one, a very common tool in the industry, and it's exactly for the stated purpose of just simply providing additional capacity for those ebbs and flows that you have that you wouldn't necessarily hire up to, but you would want to be able to meet those if there were multiple grant applications due at the same time, if there were multiple projects that were all on a particular timeline, and you just needed a bit of extra capacity to manage through. One of the things that will be also could be very helpful, and I think it's absolute to your point, is that it can also be helpful to us as we work side by side on these projects and on delivery of the whether it's project management or planning, whatever it might be, that those with some higher levels of expertise can also be helping to sort of train our staff in a real-time environment. That we're hiring folks. And so a lot of people are going to come in. Some people are going to come in with a lot of expertise, and some people with, especially more junior staff, with less. This gives us an opportunity to fill those voids of need when we have them. We only use it when we need it, only for what we need, and be able to leverage that outside, that external expertise in a way that can help also advance the skills of our own staff.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the concerns in the past has been that when we looked at the number of contracted services that we had and the impact it had on our budget, was concerned, previous in the past. So I don't want to see us get back in that same situation where we're so dependent upon contracting, and that we don't have the in-house expertise. And my last question had to do with the statistical data in the human resource department.
Yes.
I saw the new hire. Did we lose anybody?
I'll have that information prior to board meeting, Dr. Robinson. I'm sure that we did, but what that number is, I don't have it as of today.
Dr. Robinson, one other thing I wanted to mention back to your previous question is, we all know that the workforce situation across nearly every part of business, whether that's the public sector side of government or private sector right now, it's just a very different workplace and workforce environment for hiring and retaining folks and that sort of thing. So to your point about that, your previous experiences around these on-call contracts were the costs that we bore in order to engage those. One, we're managing that very effectively and carefully now, but two, I would also point out to you that our lack of effective project management, the costs that we are bearing and have borne for not having filled those needs and those resources and getting it done effectively and in compliance, and from a time frame perspective, we have borne way more cost, frankly, on that side than I think we would bear from implementation of a contract. So again, I want you to feel comfortable that we're going to use these things very prudently, very judiciously. Again, they're to be used when you have the need, and it's a quick in and out, or a very defined in and out that you wouldn't necessarily staff up to anyway. But we're going to take the opportunity, again, to be training our own staff and to be making sure timely implementation has got to be top of mind for us. It's a part of the situation we see in the cost of grants. It's a part of the situation we see on some of the cost of facilities. We simply cannot get grants or planning activities in here, and then they linger on for several years without great progress. And then when we get to the time for the project, it's just both the time lapse and the cost of whether it's materials or whatever have overtaken us. So I will tell you that I believe that these are ultimately going to result in a more efficient, effective resources of getting great job done here, Kat. So I appreciate your comments about it. I appreciate you making sure we're mindful of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is the planning and infrastructure update, and I'm going to ask Ashley to please deliver that report to us. Thank you, Ashley.
Good morning, everyone. Cat ridership in November is increased year over year from November of 2021. As you may recall, in 2021, there was a limited seated capacity policy in place for CAT due to the COVID pandemic. The lifting of that policy in spring of 2022 has effectively increased our ridership every quarter, including through the winter. Currently, CAT is contained in the service modifications due to a driver shortage, and this driver shortage resulted in a modified schedule of our CAT services. CAT services in the month of November had temporary suspensions for the Route 4, the Route 11, and the Route 20. Ridership per hour and as a passengers per hour statistic, you will see quite a bit of percent change in your reporting for this month. A majority of our routes that are in service have seen increases in this passenger per hour percentage, and also is starting to meet our key performance indicators, such as the statistic of 18 passengers per hour. Routes to speak about have more increases over the month as the service modifications came into effect are going to be the Route 27 Waters, the Route 14 Abercorn, the Route 3B Augusta Avenue, and the Route 31 Skidaway. Next slide, please. CAT planning items in the month of November include the Master Transit Comprehensive Plan and TDP COA operations analysis. We are finishing up our phase 1 of the data collection with our consultants with both WRA and Nelson Nygaard. And we expect soon in the upcoming few weeks to have a state of the system report that will be supplied to our board of directors and our stakeholders and committee. We also in the planning department worked on a return of the Route 4 Barnard for fixed route system service. Due to the medley of reports, service alerts, and community impacts, it was determined that the Route 4 would need to be placed back into service as soon as we had drivers available for the direct pending our operations staffing. CAT planning staff made sure that the Route 4 Barnard was specified in our data sets and analytics so that this could be done in the middle of the system service before spring of March. Next slide, please. The Route 4 Barnard actually has returned to service this week in the month of December. So from November to December, it was determined that the Route 4 would still be on a modified system schedule. The Route 4 will be running from 8:30 in the morning to around 5:30 p.m. A little bit of the differences in the schedule is that it will actually start at the Montgomery Cross Walmart and come into town at that 8:30 time slot. And then it will end at the JMR ITC in the afternoon. There's no holiday service at this time for the Route 4 Barnard. But as we work through our modifications and we go into next year for spring, we will continue to review those items. Next slide. We also, as we are working through our TDP COA, we are conducting a survey of our standard and typical ridership. This is something that is required by FTA once every 5 years for a transit agency and is part of our Title VI analysis. We will be working on surveying our ridership, both digitally and in the field, both through the month of December and January and into the spring. This is something that CAT staff is working internally in conjunction with communications, as well as with the internal help needed to get the on-field work completed. So this will be something that you will see as we work through our TDP and more information comes out about our state of the system reporting, that we will also be looking at where do our riders and our community need and want to go? How are they using our system service now? And what are they looking for in the destinations that they may not be able to get to, both by time or distance? And that concludes our planning report for the month of November. Thank you. If you have any questions.
I got a couple of questions.
Okay.
Different comments too, because I think this is the first we're able to see the changes that we made in November, which is kind of cool. Looks like generally it's kind of working out. What comments are we getting from people about the changes? I'd be really interested in just sort of like on the ground comments from people writing to us as to, is this appear helpful? So obviously, we as a board have gone through the conversation about the pros and cons of leaving people stranded everywhere, or cutting some routes and making sure that we are more resilient.
So the reliability side of this is that because the majority of our system schedule on a daily basis is now being staffed appropriately, the ridership is available each and every day, Monday through Sunday, as for people to get out to our bus stops and to be able to utilize our service. There's no more of this. I got out to the bus stop on a Route 10 and I had to wait not just an hour for my bus because that's the frequency, but I had to wait over 2 hours to get there. Some of the comments we've received have been some of our early system schedules, such as the Route 3B Augusta and that first morning trip at 5:30 in the morning. However, we do know that the Route 3 West Chatham is still in that area of service. Our weekend service took also a hit in our system schedule where we have only one bus on the Route 25. We only have one bus on Sunday on the Route 27 Waters, and the Route 3 is effectively running the holiday schedule on the weekend in order to account for our service modifications. So what you kind of see with that is that the daily reliability is boosting up our service. Reducing the service hours like we did is also statistically raising our key performance indicators. So for the first time since COVID and even a couple of fiscal years prior to COVID, that registered decline that you saw in our passengers per hour, it has turned and it will continue to increase as we are currently in our fixed route system schedule. That being said, the fixed route hours is still quite a bit under budget, and our budgeted service hours would be the full system schedule that we all know and talk about and look to put forward for our community.
It's still our intention, Director and Mr. that we're going to continue to add back as we hire in operators, and we have both the chance to both the COA TDP as well as the master transit plan to think about what are the most effective. Are there some things we have the opportunity to consider in how we add that? Then we'll have the opportunity to do that. But our commitment to the community when we made that very hard service modification was that we'll get it back to you as quickly as we can. And I think we've already evidenced that with the Route 4.
Question,
Yes, sir.
with these necessary changes, are we getting that message out to the public?
Yes. So our messaging included door-to-door with our communication staff prior to the service change in a few select neighborhoods. We put forth a variety of press releases and service alerts, as well as our social media and communication. We had, it was not myself, but other CAT staff across multiple departments went out to several of our shelters and bus stops. We posted our service modifications on, I would say, the top 30 to 40 shelters in the area, especially on the routes that had reductions either in the routing or had reductions in service hours, so distance or hours. And as we had to change a few routes, such as the Route 12 for the change in routing and the short turns and that reduction of service, there was a new temporary bus stop put in place to accommodate the change. And then also at the same time, we have temporarily closed some of those shelters to make sure that when we bring the service back, all of the infrastructure is still in place.
Thank you.
Director Lockett,
Yes.
in addition to the communication strategy that the comms team did such an excellent job that Ashley was mentioning, one of the other things that I've noticed is when we were in the thick of just missing trips all over the place, it was right before you all supported the service line. One of the things, I was getting emails every day from somebody.
And I was
upset.
also.
I'm sure you all were getting them. They were coming in through, the communication portals here on our website and so forth. We were getting bombarded with how, tough things were. I was getting calls from, especially from paratransit folks who weren't getting scheduled. I mean, it was a daily thing. It's quiet. And so I think that is an indication that what we put back out there, while it might not at this point, everything everybody wants and needs, it's reliable and it's working. And so there's consistency that has made the community feel okay about it all again until, we can add things back.
We're headed in the right direction.
We are. Yes, we are. All right. Yes.
I'd like to give staff a compliment, because I've been riding the 3 and the 3B for a couple of weeks now. And they're on time. Both of them on time. One was even ahead of time. I had to run to get to the bus stop, make sure it didn't leave. But also the call center, great information I got from the call center. I just want to compliment everybody.
Excellent.
Everything is working well for me.
Well, I think in last week's snapshot, I talked to you about the week. And you all are a key part of the week, but we are a week, right?
We all.
Everybody's rowing and pulling in the same direction. And so those are great to hear. And I appreciate you all taking time as board members to compliment the staff here on the work that they're doing. They're watching this and they hear it. And it means so much coming from you all. So thank you.
And one more question. On the 29, I see an increase in the numbers. Is that because of the free shuttle service to Cloverdale and Southfield?
It's a little bit of both. So because the statistical service hours were reduced and that we are running an AM peak service and a PM peak service on the Route 29, that service hour reduction with even a similar amount of ridership is going to raise that statistic. However, right now we're still working through and determining where the downtown dot, when it's covering the Cloverdale trips, all of that system service is overlapping onto the Route 29 right now. And we're still working through our data sets to really pinpoint that ridership. We can break down our ridership by trip, by stop, but it's a very huge undertaking. It's taken us a lot of time. So what I will tell you is that we have increases in ridership on both the 7D downtown. And that route, we expected to have an increase of ridership. That was why it was brought to board approval back in June and July for that rerouting. But also, we will have to break down in a further tighter detail where the Cloverdale, the new dot pilot Carver Village piece is. And then if there's something still in our routing and our technology that's shooting it off to Route 29 or shooting it off to downtown. But that ridership is there and it's being accounted for. So, sure. Yes, sir.
The Route 14, does it have 2 types of routes embedded in it? Or is it just always goes from all the way downtown to all the way south side? And that's the way that it goes. Is there one route that where it stops at the Savannah Mall or when it stops at the
So there's two patterns on that route. And the only difference between the two patterns has been that specific buses at a time point visit the Rosa Sharon, which normally would duplicate with the Route 11 Candler. And that pattern deviation has been in place for about 10 to 12 years now. What we are seeing, for instance, in the scheduling is that that deviation to Rosa Sharon, they just always made the extra time up in the schedule. And we never actually put a time point to it to say, we know that it takes an extra 3 minutes to get you there to Rosa Sharon. So what that does is that actually can put, say, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 p.m., it's going to put that Route 14 a little bit further behind in peak traffic. In terms of patterns, there's always a topic of discussion for a short route to the Oglethorpe Mall. From a positive standpoint, the Route 4 at one time had a short pattern turn both to the Oglethorpe Mall and Chatham Plaza. So before, in the time prior to COVID, you actually had two routes side by side in the same corridor going northbound and southbound, almost within a block of each other. Part of what we will be looking at for March, and this is also congruent to the amount of staffing that we have available, because we do see places where we need to put service back into place. The Route 14 is a part of that. But right now, CAT staff through the month of December is still analyzing that. And one of the ways that we are looking at it is we are analyzing our load capacities on the 14 particularly, just because the service hour reduction was to take a vehicle off of that route. Even though when we talked about the modifications, we said, hey, it will still run in frequency every 30 minutes, where we accounted for the Route 6 to go to the Savannah Mall and to try to kind of do a little bit of changes on the south end. But what happens is if you still have the same amount of ridership, or you have an increase in ridership, but you have less vehicles on the roadway to account for that, that means every stop on Abercorn, you are more than likely going to have somebody there. And now you're taking more time out of that schedule to pick up each and every person that otherwise that fifth bus, sixth bus would have picked up the low capacities like slack. But we don't really quite have that analysis fully done yet, and it probably wouldn't be available until January or more at the latest.
Additionally, the dot ridership for the 7F is very high. I know that's a relatively small bus compared to the other ones. Is there any concern that we might be over capacity on that route?
With the increase in ridership and the reliability measures that we now have put back into place, that is precisely a concern for the new route. What we did because as we all know, the DOT service is a contracted service. So we have a specific contract for service hours with the city of Savannah. The route extension was put into place from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So it takes a little bit more time to go further south of the park. But then at the same time, it's still in tight enough frequency that it's getting so many numerous trips per day that there's more opportunity for ridership every 10 to 15 minutes. The Route 7 Forsyth is only 6% of our system service, and it is outperforming the Route 14 Abercorn. So load capacity is a very serious issue. The fleet that we specify for that route is some of our smallest vehicles in the fleet. And it would be at a standing room only type of level of capacity. So those are the two routes we'll be looking at. And then we go back to our transit service guidelines to take in those measures into consideration.
Would it be possible to get hourly ridership levels for the DOT? Just because I'd be interested in seeing if it's more used in the afternoon. I've been hearing from different folks that more people would like to see it sort of used a bit later. Maybe that's a conversation in the city, as opposed to early in the morning. But it is very popular by pretty much everybody I've talked to who used it.
We can let us take a look. We'll sit back with more questions. One thing I'm going to mention that you'll be hearing from me, you just made me think of it on when we're talked about the city and the city service hours on this. One of the things that I hope we're able to do in 2023 is start to migrate some of the CAT system level support away from the current practice, which is has been very important, of where sort of the county is a key supporter of paratransit, the city is a primary supporter of the DOT and that kind of thing, but looking at it as one CAT. We're one CAT that provides a multitude of services, and our funding needs to reflect that versus being a sponsorship, if you will, of certain service elements. So I just want to mention that. And it's something for us to begin to talk about in 2023 as part of our business model.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ashley.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, before we move forward, I would also like to go back into last week, these last couple of weeks, the CEO and staff have been going to various events and mentioned. And we went to the GTA convention a couple of weeks ago. And what I want to let our board know, as well as staff, is when we go to these events, they're showing us the improvements of transit throughout the transit community. And throughout the transit community, we short on buses. It's hard to get buses in. We short on drivers. And what they do is implement the necessary path that transit agencies should go through and take to improve upon the situation. And what I would like to tell the staff is, as well as our board, what impressed me most was the fact that the suggestions that they had for us to improve upon, we already implement. Our CEO and staff are already on top of it. And it was a pleasure for me to know that when the CEO there, she's working diligently. The other day we had a meeting with the delegation, and it took me back to last year this time. And we met, me and the CEO, her first day on the job, we had to go meet with the delegation before she was even hired. And we told them that we was gonna make these improvements and what we was looking at moving our business forward. And I'll be honest with you, we've made great strides throughout the last year. I can't say enough about our CEO and staff, for Ms. Carter, for being on top of everything. Our recent hires, like Dr. Lanning, speaking on the quality of the training, and this is what we have to do. It's gonna be little changes with all of us in this room. In this room, our backbone that runs this organization. I just want to thank everybody in here for doing an exceptional job.
Chairman, I'd like to add something to that. I've received several compliments from senior citizens that some of disabled as well as being able to get out the building because of CAT's assistance. That is very big in the community, and they're talking about it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I would say if we could not do this, again, we're back to that way. We could not do anything we did without you all. You're a great board working effectively together in support of CAT. And we could not do anything without you. So thank you very much for that. We got proposed board action items for consent.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
So on the item number 3 under the agenda, there are several items that are noted as pending report, and I'm going to ask our Chief of Staff Board Administrator, Beverly Dennis, to just explain those before we start moving through these items.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Massimo. At this time, staff is currently waiting on reporting information to come in from various departments. Once the reports are submitted to the CEO and to the board office, the packet will be regenerated to include the updated reports that are currently missing from committee packet, which will fall under 3A, H, I, J, K, and L. So, I'm sorry, not L, M, 3M. So staff is currently working on the report. Unfortunately, it's not ready today, but we will have it generated by the end of this week.
And if you do have any questions about those, though, I mean, we're obviously, if there's a question, even in the abstract being able to present to you, that we can talk about those in some sort of summary fashion. So With that said, we'll move past the item 3A. And Ms. Cutter, if you could walk us through items 3B, C, D, E, and F, all financial services items. This is the budget calendar and the on-call contract awards. One thing I want to say before Ms. Cutter starts doing that is the reason that you see 2 on-call contract awards in each of those service areas, general planning services and in project program management, is one thing that we know as a part of effective management is that oftentimes, remember, we're not the only client for any of these on-call services. And so we always want to be sure that we've got available capacity to us. We're only going to use what we need to use when we need it. But again, if we call upon one and they simply are completely booked up, we want to have an alternative to be sure that we can access the resources we need to accomplish a particular task at hand. So that's why you see 2 awards under each category. And that is common practice in the industry, and I think a really important part of good management for us. So Ms. Cutter.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, the only question I had when I saw that was, we have a bottom line dollar amount that we're gonna pay for these services, am I correct?
Well, it's
Or
on
estimated.
call, so it is negotiated. Yes, there's a total value associated with each over. Remember, these are 5-year contracts, so
Right.
this is for 5 years. But then each task is, negotiated separately. And then the other thing it gives us an opportunity to do, quite honestly, Director, that I think is important, that's how I've approached it in the past, is if you have a particular task and you actually want to have both vendors give you a proposal on it and see which one is the most cost effective, it gives you the opportunity for some additional competition there.
Okay, so with the 2 in mind, you can still negotiate between the 2, but they won't be both doing the same thing at the same time.
Oh, no, ma'am, absolutely not. That's
Okay.
correct.
And wanted to add to that, with everything that's associated with the Hyundai site development and Chatham area transit, planning to accommodate that and to get people and to and from work and families in and out of town. We're going to be pursuing a lot of grant opportunities that may overwhelm the staff resources that we have. So if we have these contracts already underway that we can go to for a specific purpose, then that helps us to respond more timely. The procurement process can take sometimes 2 to 3 months. So if we're just trying to be better prepared to meet the challenges of the future by having these on-call services as a part of our toolkit. And that's basically what it's about. If we don't need them, we won't use them. And of course, reports will come before the CAT board, always updating you on what consultants are doing and examining the benefits so that you all are always aware and have the opportunity to ask questions about anything that they are doing. We're just really trying to be better prepared to respond to the needs of the community as it relates to transit. Okay, the first item, the budget calendar. This is really an outline of the budget planning process so that the board will know exactly where we are, what's going on as a part of that process, and have the dates wherein they know when the scheduled workshops are, when we plan to have the drafts before you, and the completed document. It's our guide, our work guide for the FY24 budget process. We've talked about the on-call contracts and the purpose of them. The contract sits on the shelf until they are needed. They do not take the place of the essential functions of CAT staff. Item G, the paratransit vehicle purchase. Dr. Manny has made an extensive effort of outreach to look to see where available vehicles are. These 10 vehicles are electric vehicles. It supports CAT's Green program as well as provide reliable transportation for our paratransit customers. These vehicles are grant funded, and there is a 20% local match in which we are preparing to respond and not hold up this purchase. We have 2 pending reports that will be coming.
Quick question on the, if I can try to sum up the report on the paratransit, we're buying 10 out of our original, we're buying 10 for about $1.5 million, rough numbers. Got that $2.4 million that we had originally set aside was available for close to 30 new paratransit buses or cars.
Mhm.
So we're getting less cars for less money, but that's okay. And these are electric vehicles that we're buying from Oklahoma. And one of them is here that we're trying out.
The one came out here and we tested it out. Almost everybody involved to see and give us the opinion. And it was very good.
Can I look at it?
It's not here yet, but if you want, I can arrange for one to come over
All right.
and I will come.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is it a Ford? What is it? Ford?
it's a
Ford.
Ford. It's not like the transit, it's a wider space.
It's like one of the real new ones.
It's a real new one, and they actually
I wanna
have
check
it
that
on
out.
display at GTA when the chairman and I went to GTA here. So
I can arrange for one to come over.
So we still have more, we still have like about $1 million left. that we can spend.
And that the plan is for those dollars to go towards the so the remaining funds will go towards the purchase of gasoline vehicles.
this is kind of for the benefit of the public too. Could you go back on the on-call contract awards and call out who the proposed awards are, just as a matter of transparency?
Yes, AECOM and WRA for general planning services, Atlas and Arcadis for project program management services.
Thank
Mhm.
On the, just to explain too, on that sole source document cost estimate that you'll be seeing, the reason for that is we realize that in terms of the grants
Yes.
requirements that we're completing with FTA right now remember, we had one grant that funded 2 projects. It funded the dock extension down at Plant Riverside, the west side, and it also funded the ferry maintenance facility over in Hutchinson Island. We did not have a cost estimate for those items or current cost estimates. So we need to do that as a part of updating FTA and finalizing our requirements so that the grant will fund. And so that's what that need will be for. And the reason that it is sole source is because we need a quick turnaround, obviously, on it, given the time constraints on that grant. And you'll recall that there's a local firm that has been involved in both of those projects since the beginning. And
Yes.
it just makes all the sense in the world to leverage that knowledge and especially with the time criticalness of it. So you'll be seeing that in that award. And then on the ferry construction award, you will also see a memo where we are recommending for 3 bids. We are actually, staff is recommending, what we're recommending to you is the middle, not the lowest bidder. And there's several reasons. One, there's a 10-month difference in delivery between low bidder and second low bidder, 10 months, nearly a year. And it's for a relatively small amount of funding difference. It's about $100,000 funding difference. And the second low bidder has about 75 years of experience in this marine services, vessels, construction area. And the other vendor doesn't have as much, so the lowest bidder doesn't have as much. And so you'll see all that
Yeah.
assessment in what you're given around those two. So I just wanted to mention those. I know that those are pending from Portland, but wanted to be sure to mention that to you. So you'll be seeing that.
Yes. So those are all of the action items for the Financial Services Audit Compliance Committee that will be coming before the board on the 20th.
Any comments or questions on any of those matters? Any of the other materials under the consent for individual action items? I know we got the government's calendar and the contract ratification for the union as well, but I didn't know if there were any other questions or comments there.
I apologize. for not having seen them.
On the old new business, December 20th. Have anything on 35th anniversary social appreciation event?
Thank you, Chairman. We just want to let you guys know again that we are having a 35th anniversary and appreciation social on next Wednesday, December 21st. This is a joint project between us and the HR department, and we're so excited to work with them on this. The first half from 4:30 to 6 will be for our community stakeholders, doing tours, stuff like that of the facility. And then the other half, 6 to 8 p.m. will be geared towards our employees and honoring them and appreciating them. So we invite you all. The invite was sent as a calendar invite to you guys by Ms. Beverly, and you can RSVP by emailing rsvp@catchcat.org.
What was the deal?
Here, it's going to be held here at Cat Central.
And thank you for that, Ariella. Thank you, everybody, for attending today's meeting. All our board members and staff. Our next regular board meeting is December 20th. At this time, I'd like to adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
You all.
Everybody say